A very good morning to everyone and welcome back. I hope everybody's actually having a really, really good day. We've come to the end of another week, actually. But welcome again to ICTM SME webinars. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to join us on this journey on how to navigate your business and maybe yourself during a world that is still full of COVID-19. Today, please give a warm welcome to international speaker and corporate trainer, Dr. Frank Peter. He has over a decade in experience in applying and teaching digital marketing techniques from e-commerce, Google Ads, and Google Analytics to even social media tactics. Excuse me. His topic today is digital transformation for SMEs in a time of crisis. Now, I think a lot of you have heard me say this before throughout all the seminars, that it is almost cliche to say that we live in unpredictable times. In very, very unpredictable times, and business owners are finding themselves facing a crisis, I think, that nobody can really sort of plan for. And the question now is whether you can embrace this fear, this wondering about the unknown, and build from it and transform your business. And I think the person that will have answers for that is Dr. Frank. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Nadia. It's been a great pleasure being here. I just checked the attendance list. So currently we have about 55 participants on there, and I saw my name on it as well. So it says there, Dr. Frank Peter, and then in brackets behind there, it says me. I find this is a great service for the slightly older ones and the slightly confused ones. So if I look at the list and see a name there, Dr. Frank Peter sounds familiar, and then it says me, then I'm being reassured it's actually me. So thanks to technology for making this a lot easier. Well, thanks for coming up this morning. Let me share my screen so we are all on the same boat. Expand. So sorry about that. Today's topic is digital transformation for SMEs in a time of crisis. So digital transformation is a buzzword that has been used by many in the media, by politicians, by vendors. Everybody uses big words like digital transformation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, digital economy, a bit of blockchain thrown in here and there for good measure. But in essence, not many people really know what it actually means, especially on a day-to-day basis, and what the reason is behind it. Now, why should you embrace this? Why is this a current trend? And why do you need to ride the wave? So I want to shed a bit of light on it by focusing on a couple of things that might be of interest to especially small and medium-sized businesses. So I saw from the attendance list that I've been given earlier, there's some large companies here as well, or representatives of large companies, but the focus really is on SMEs today to give them a bit of a start. Large companies have the budgets normally, maybe not now at the moment, but in general, they have the budgets to implement certain things, but it is not always about the money, as you will see. Smaller companies may not have the budget for it, but smaller companies tend to be a bit more nimble. So for them, it's a bit easier to move around, take a quick look at the operations and make quick changes to it. And that is something I would like to put a bit of finger on for especially small companies, to look at certain ways they do business now or run their business now, things that can be done on a budget at very little or no cost, and in a fairly small time frame. So I'm going to start slow and then we ramp up as we go. If you have any questions later for me, please use the Q&A as Nadia pointed out earlier, then we will discuss it at the end of it. If you have any technical issues, then please use the chat box. All right, let me introduce myself first so you know who's talking to you. So my name is Frank, as has been evident. I'm a certified Google educator, so I do work with Google. I don't work for Google, but I do sometimes get clients through Google, and I'm certified in a number of Google products. So those have to do with mostly online marketing and a bit on cloud computing as well. And I said, I don't work for Google, so I don't get paid by Google. I do get the occasional Google swag, so I have a Google mug somewhere, and I have a Google jacket and stuff like that. So that I do get. I work with academia quite closely. I'm an associate faculty with UUM, with their Graduate School of Business. I'm an advisor for the International University Malaya Wales, especially for their science and technology faculties, and a couple of other things as well. If you want to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. The easiest way would be through LinkedIn. You can see my LinkedIn profile here on the slide. You can also go to LinkedIn and simply Google for my name, Dr. Frank Peter, and hopefully it will show up. Okay, so what we're going to talk about a little bit is buzzwords. So I want to get a few things out of the way. These three that you see here, digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation, are often being used interchangeably. Recently, some time ago actually, I was approached by a company owner. He said, "Now, Frank, can you help me to digitize my staff?" And I looked at him and I said, "No, but I can help you getting your company transformed." So he had the right intention, but he used the wrong words for it. So digitization refers to converting something from an analog format, so having something not on an analog format, but on a digital format. So analog format would be, for example, you're writing a letter. Yeah, so you write a handwritten letter, or a Christmas card, or birthday card, or raya card, or Chinese New Year card, or any other card by hand. Now that is an analog format. Now to transform this into a digital format, you could scan it. So you put it onto a scanner, you use a piece of technical equipment, you scan it into a digital format. Now you have your scanned letter that is now digitized. Yeah, so that digitization means the conversion of an analog format into a digital format. Digitalization is the same for processes. So you have an analog process and you convert it into a digital process. Now to stick with the example, so let's say you have your handwritten letter, you put it into an envelope, you put a postage stamp on it. Now for the younger generation, you might want to Google what a postage stamp is. But you put a postage stamp on, you put it into a mailbox and it will eventually be delivered. That's an analog process. The alternative to this is you use your scanned letter, you attach it to an email and you send it out. That would be digitizing the process of delivering your letter. And you can already see there are quite a number of advantages to it, to the digitization. One is digitalization. One is it's a lot faster. So sending a snail mail letter, depends on where you send it to, may take between a few days to a few weeks to reach the recipient. Whereas email is pretty much instantaneous. It's also cheaper using email because if you already have your internet connection, it's basically free. Whereas for a letter, you have to pay postage. So that it costs you money every time you send something. So one of the advantages of digital technologies over analog technologies is speed and cost. I'm going to wail on this a little bit as we get along, but I just want you to get that concept. So then digital transformation is the combination of both. So it's transforming documentation that you have, transforming processes, transforming everything within the company and actually outside your company as well to make it quicker, faster, and easier. So it's a whole set of processes and a whole set of bits and pieces that can be done within those processes. So what that company director meant was, Frank, can you help me to digitally transform my company? So that's what he actually wanted to do. So the big question is, why on earth should you do it? If you listen to, let's say, politicians or the media or vendors or anybody else who has some knowledge of it, they will all tell you, oh, you have to digital transform your company or else you will gonna lose your company, you disappear. It's like the earth will open and swallow your company whole if you don't digitally transform. But no real reason is given now. Why should you do it? What's the purpose of it? Vendors, for example, will make you believe that the only reason for digital transformation is so you can buy new shiny equipment. And that's probably the least thing that you want to do, especially now if you're on a budget. That's the least thing you want to spend money on. Buy stuff that you actually don't need. So it's important to me and to you to understand why companies need to think about digital transformation. And it is not about digital. So to me, that's a misnomer. It is about transformation. But transformation to what and for what? What's the reason behind it? Once you have that understanding, it's a lot easier to think about all the processes and all the other stuff that has to happen in a company to actually help you with it. So there's only one reason why companies need to digital transform. Only one. That is very simple. It's all about the customer. That's it. So it's not about technology. It's all about your customer. So let me explain this. Nowadays, customers, and I don't care what kind of vertical you're in, whether you're a small company, whether you're a large company, unless you have a monopoly on what you do, then you might not have this. But the moment you have at least one competitor anywhere on earth, you are in a race for customers, for business. Customers with that have choices. You and I, we can go on the internet, can Google for whatever we're looking for. Let's say you're in the market to buy some new blue suede shoes or what. The moment you want to buy some, you go on the internet and you check out where you can get the best selection, where you can get the best price, where is the easiest way of getting it. So customers don't care about you or your product or your company specifically. Nobody does. That's a hard truth. Customers only care about themselves. Yeah. So customers only care about themselves. They want the best product at the best price at the most convenient way. And if you as a company can provide that, then you stand a chance. If you are behind other companies who are better than you in this, then you lose that chance. So that's where you lose out. So there are a couple of things that need to be done in order to be more competitive. So you got to speed things up. So you make it easier for customers to get your stuff. Your products have to be good, preferably better than anybody else's, and they have to be reasonably priced. So sometimes this is difficult. So they want it fast, they want it good, and they want it cheap. In order to get there, you need to change the way you do business. So one of the main things in order to provide goods and services in a cheaper way is to sell them at a lower price. That is competing on price. You can also compete on quality, obviously. Competing on price means you have to look at your supply chain, save money there on one side. On the other side, you have to make it easier and cheaper for the customer to get your product. So you don't make it difficult for customers to walk to your store, talk to a sales assistant who is not really willing to spend much time with the customer because you just interrupted him or her on their Facebook session, and so on. So you want to make it as convenient as possible. So that, for example, would be an online store, if it's possible for you. So those would be the two ends to it. Yeah. So the supply chain has to be made easier, and the customer service has to be made easier. But there's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle, and that is the way you process your goods that coming in all the way when they go out to the door into the shops. Same for services and so on. So there's processes within your company that can be improved. Let me give you a simple example for this. So let's say it's a manufacturing company. You have a manufacturing company, you make stuff. So you have a product development team. And that product development team comes up with a new product. Now they're really happy about it. They brainstormed about it a lot. We had lots of meetings about it. So they come out with a brand new product. Then sales and marketing will get the word out, will eventually get it to the customers. Customers will buy it. And then customers will use the product and find out, that's actually not really what I wanted, and it can't really do what I was expecting, and it's difficult to use, and so on and so on. So who's going to get the feedback? Your customer service will get the feedback. So many companies that I've worked with, the feedback that customer service gets on how difficult the product is to use and how the functions are lacking and so on, that information is not given to product development. So product development still thinks in that silo, in that bubble, that they made the best things in sliced bread. But in reality, it is not. So if you would have an infrastructure in place within the company where you have some information sharing, so where, for example, your customer service could put up the complaints that customers had, about the product, and make those available to not only the product development team, but also to the salespeople, the marketing people, and so pretty much everybody in the company, then you can quickly make the product better. Yeah, so that would help to appease customers. They will enjoy having a better product. So you can replace it or have something else available, whatever, it's up to you. But you please the customer with listening to their complaints and making a better product out of it. For this to work, you have to have a platform in place or some structure in place within the company where information is being shared. That is important. So something simple like an internal Facebook, for example, or an internal LinkedIn that you could use. So a simple social media platform that you have internally only. And it doesn't matter, even if you're just a small company, if you have only 5 or 6 people, or 10 people, or 50 people, or whatever it is, you got to think about one way of sharing information. If everybody knows stuff that they need to know to improve processes or products or services within the company, the better the company will do. It's simple as that. If your company is still built out of silos, where one department doesn't talk to the other department, they're actually protecting themselves against one another for whatever reason, then you don't have that interchange of information. So you will not have that ability to listen to customer complaints and react to it very quickly. And in general, small companies are a lot easier to get this implemented compared to large companies, where every manager is trying to protect their sphere of influence and so on. So digital transformation, it's not so much about, as I said, digital. It's not so much about the technical part behind it. It is about transforming a company to make it more productive. So that's basically what transformation means. And digital is just tools that help you with this. So let me get back to that example for information sharing. So let's say you have a small company, 10, 20 people, whatever it might be, and you need to get everybody to know about something that is important. So I had companies that I worked with, maybe 50 people in that company, or maybe slightly more, where HR was trying to get information disseminated to all the people, the HR person. And she said, it's so difficult because nobody opens up the emails and nobody looks at the damn notice board and so on. What should I do? And what we tried was we put a Post-it note on the fridge in the pantry. Well, not a Post-it, slightly bigger Post-it note, glued it with a piece of tape on the fridge. The pantry was frequented by everybody. Everybody put their lunchbox in there and whatever. So that everybody read the notice on the fridge. So that notice could do more than an email that was sent out, but not opened by everybody. So in the end of the day, what worked best was that Post-it note and not a digital tool. So what we did was we stuck with the Post-it note. So although it's called digital transformation, it doesn't mean that you have to, by all means, use digital tools. The outcome counts in the end of the day. If digital tools help, by all means go for it, because generally it's cheaper. But if analog tools help, then go for that. So that, I think, is an important way to think about this. Okay, so it's the customer that you have to focus on. So customer determines how your processes need to be optimized to make it better, to make it easy, to make it cheaper for a customer to buy your product. Now, customer does not always mean an end customer who buys your product. If you run, let's say, HR, then your customers are within the company. Those are the employees in your company. As an HR practitioner, your customers are not the ones who buy the product outside. Your customers, as a department, are the other employees in the company. So when you talk about transforming, for example, the HR function, you got to think about how you make things easier and cheaper and better and, well, not lower in price, but easier in general for your internal customers, your colleagues within the company. The same principles apply. Yeah, so it doesn't, it's not different from external customers. The mindset has to be there. So the important thing, before you even get to start to think about digital transformation, is who do I do this for? And one thing to re-emphasize this point that I normally do with companies, we relook at their mission statement. Many companies have a mission statement that says, now we want to be the best in this, we want to be a world leader in that, we want to have the best products and so on. And that is the wrong mindset. because this mindset is centered around the company and its products. It is not centered around the customer. If you go to my company, I run a company called Skills Academy Malaysia. Our mission statement is different. So our mission statement is now we want to help Malaysians to upgrade themselves so they stand a better chance of having a fighting chance in becoming future-proof. So we want to help customers to achieve a certain goal. So it is not we want to have the best product. Of course, we want that, but we don't say that. We don't want to say that we want the best product. We want to say that we want to be known as we want to help Malaysians to upgrade themselves so they have a better chance in future-proofing themselves. So you can see the difference, right? One is about the product and about the company. The other one is about looking at the customer. So if you relook at your mission statement for your company and it is not customer-centric, think about changing it. Because that mission statement will set the overall direction as to how employees in their company look at their jobs. Are they working for the company or are they working for customer satisfaction in the end? That mindset change is probably the most important mindset change that companies have to go through before they even buy a single computer or whatever else they need to, if they actually do have to. So it's the mindset change. It is all about the customer. Customer comes first for this. And whatever you do is to make it easier for customers to find and to buy your products. Okay, so I want to touch on a couple of things. And I only have 45 minutes and I already used quite a bit. Oh, not too bad. So I want to touch a little bit on cloud computing, very little, because it's basically free to start out with. And it's something that's is highly propagated. Going online and social media marketing, I want to touch a little bit, and something that's close to my heart, that's the gig economy. Quickly on the cloud computing. Now, one thing that happened during MCO was that many of us couldn't get into the office. Now, I've been working from home for the last year and a half. I do have an office, but I rarely go there. I enjoy working from home because I can take a nap whenever I want. But many companies were forced to work from home, or their staff were forced to work from home, but their problem was they couldn't get access to files that they have. And that must have been an eye-opener. So instead of relying on those ugly gray steel cabinets that you have in the office, it's a lot easier to put everything into the cloud. Now, what is the cloud? The cloud basically means it is decentralized computers. What it means from a practical point of view is that anybody, your staff, yourself, whoever you authorize, can access any kind of document from anywhere in the world. So you could be on holiday, you could sit by the beach, sipping at, once travel restrictions are lifted, of course, now sipping a colorful drink with an umbrella in it, and you could still access any file out of your company, stuff that would normally stick in a file, in a folder in one of those gray steel cabinets. And during MCO, that would have been majorly helpful for everybody. So instead of sneaking out to the office middle of the night, hoping that nobody catches you, to take a few folders from the office, you could have done this simply by using cloud computing. And the way to get there is actually quite easy as well. So all you need to do is get your files digitized. Remember, you get it from an analog format into digital format by, for example, scanning it and putting it into a virtual folder, let's say on Google Drive. If you're a small company, Google Drive will be more than sufficient, at least as a start, and it's free. The other thing is, when it comes to cloud computing, most of the software that is available, for which you normally have to pay, I know quite a number of companies, they use Microsoft Office, which they bought for 10 ringgit. But if you were to really buy a proper license, they are quite expensive. If you want to be above board and fully legal, you can use this also free. So Google Drive, for example, comes with an equivalent to Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, and so on, which are all free. And they are cloud-based. That means you don't have to download it onto your computer, that software. You can use it wherever you want. That also means that now you don't have to buy 50 different licenses for it. Yeah, you just get everybody in your office access to, let's say, Google Drive or Google Docs or whatever it might be, whatever you have a need for, and get them to use that for free. It also means in terms of equipment, you don't need to buy a powerful computer. Now my computer, my laptop, I've bought this 6 or 7 years ago. And it's still more than enough for whatever I need to do, because all the software that I work with is cloud-based. I don't have to download anything onto my computer. All I need to do is get online and use the software that is freely available to me. So that is, especially for small companies, a great way to make a first step towards digitalization. So you change your documents, you change your processes from an analog format into a digital format. It doesn't, to start out, it doesn't cost you anything except time. And you can always hire somebody, part-timers, maybe students that currently students can't go to university, so they have online classes. They may have some time on the side, and get them to earn some money and digitize certain documents for you. Yeah, so it's easy to do. Shouldn't hold you anybody back. Obviously, there are pros and cons to it. So its initial outlay is zero, so you don't have to buy any computers. So there's one thing that vendors will try to make you understand is that no, digital transformation is all about shiny computers, so you have to buy the newest stuff, which is not true. You can use free stuff as long as it fulfills your purposes. Yeah, and if you have it in the cloud, you'll be able to share it with everybody in your organization if you think it's worthwhile. If there are certain people in your company who should not see certain kinds of documents, like finance documents and whatever, you can restrict the view. So you can restrict views, you can allow views. It's very, very flexible. And it's free. Problem is, in Malaysia, in particular, certain parts of Malaysia, you need to have good internet access. Only then this will work. Okay, another thing I want to point out is moving online. I still work with companies who send out printed catalogs, believe it or not. They are still around, and they still think it's a good idea. So they print once a year or twice a year, they print their stuff that they have, mostly machinery, and send it out to their current clients. And of course, it's a complete waste of money. First of all, printing is expensive. You got to send it out. That also costs money. And then the client receives it. And if they don't have a current need, they don't need a piece of equipment at this particular moment, they will see the catalog and say, thank you. And then they file it somewhere in the bin. So it's completely wasted. Some companies got a bit more advanced. So they converted their printed file or their printed catalog into a PDF file and still sent it out by email attachment to their clients. Equally wasteful, doesn't cost that much, but it's equally wasteful because, again, if the PDF file doesn't reach a client who is ready to buy at that moment, it will be filed away somewhere until it is used or not used and thrown away. Yeah, so both of these are actually useless. So if you have a company and you still send out stuff, I wouldn't bother. More importantly, get stuff online. Get somebody to build your website. And again, you don't need to have a web designer or a web developer for this. I got quotes once in a while from a company, or companies approach me and says, oh, we had a quote. They asked us for 20,000 ringgit to build us a website. And I told them, if you pay this, you're nuts. Because again, you can get this for almost free. Yeah. To build a website has a number of advantages. First of all, you can update your stuff as and when it goes. So if your new products come in, you don't have to reprint your catalog. You just update the website. If products are out of stock, you take it out of your online website. Simple as that. To set up a website, you can use infrastructure. It's called WordPress. If you don't know what it is, doesn't matter. You can Google it, or you can get somebody to do it for you. Ask your neighbor's kids to set you up a website. They will most likely be good enough in doing this. Nowadays, the technology to build a website is so simple. If you know how to write a Word document, if you know how to put images into a Word document, then that's good enough. That's all the knowledge you need to know to build a website. And if you're unsure, get your kids or get your neighbor's kids to help you out with it. It is indeed that simple. So there is no need to spend a lot of money for web developers to get the beautiful website. The other thing that people often mistake is they want to have the best looking website in the world. Ask yourself, when was the last time you went to Google and visited a website because you wanted to Google at the nice pictures on the website? Nobody goes to a website because it's pretty. People go to websites because they have a need for information or a need for products or need for knowledge or whatever it might be. But there is a need for something, for content. Nobody goes to a website because, oh, so pretty. Yeah, people go there because they're looking for answers to it. If your products and services are the answer to somebody's needs, then they will appreciate the information that you have there. And no, don't be confined to images only. Like for a printed catalog, I wanted to point that out. For a printed catalog, you only have like 1 or 2 images per product. On a website, you can have a video. So that also limits your time later on for customer service. So you can have a video of a certain product, let's say 360 view, or that product that you have where it is in its natural environment, like whatever, it's a switch, or recently I was working with a company, they made ionizers, something I've never heard of. But even for them, the website works wonders, because procurement managers, they're in companies anywhere in the world, they will go online, they will go to Google and will look for companies that make obscure stuff like ionizers as well. So they do get enough business from the internet and worldwide business. Now, previously, printed catalogs only get you business from whoever you send the catalog to. Once you're online, you get business from all over the world. But they use videos, this ionizer company, where they also show the whatever ionizer where it's plugged into where they're supposed to be in a factory. So engineers or procurement managers can see what it actually looks like, what the dimensions are, whether this is actually what they want. If they still have questions, they will call the customer service of that company. So the call number is very big on every page of that company's website. If they see, oh, it is actually not what we wanted, then they don't bother the company at all. So it's very, very helpful to have an online presence. And it doesn't really matter what product or service you're in. As I said, unless you have a monopoly on something, if you're the only vendor in your catchment area, then maybe you can be a bit more relaxed. But if you're competing with others, you have to make your stuff available. And why not? I mean, it costs you next to nothing to do so. The only real cost outlay you have is you have to buy a domain name. Like in my case, I have a website called drfrankpeter.com. So I have to pay for that drfrankpeter.com. That's about $10 US a year. And I have to pay for hosting the website. That's about, I don't know, $10 US a month, give or take. So that is my only outlay that I have. The rest of it is time. And the same it would be for you. You get somebody to set it up, a student, a neighbor's kid or whatever, and then you maintain it yourself. It is as easy to do as that. Just on a sidetrack. Now, if you think, no, WordPress never heard of, WordPress is one of the most popular backends, and it's a free backend, backends of websites. The BBC runs on it. The Wall Street Journal runs on it. Many big companies run on it. So it is scalable. It doesn't matter how big your company is. You can scale it to any size that you want, and it's free. That's something I personally like. All right. Next would be social media marketing. So that goes hand in hand with a website. Now you have a website that is very informational, has good stuff on it. If nobody knows about it, it's also not worth much. So social media is another free tool that you could use to get the information out. There's Facebook, of course, there's LinkedIn, there's Snapchat, and it really depends on who your target market is, who you're trying to reach and what your goals are. If you're a B2B company, you're probably better off using, for example, LinkedIn. If you're a business-to-consumer company, looking at, let's say, adults as customers in general, maybe Facebook is a better way. If you're looking at young adults or teenagers, then maybe Snapchat is better. It really depends on, who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to get out of it. So one thing that you got to think about before you jump onto social media or social media marketing is what is it you're trying to get out of it. The reason why this is important is you have to put content on social media. You have to write something. You have to show pictures or maybe videos, whatever. And you don't want to be distracted. If you're making, let's say, ionizers for factories, you don't want to post cat videos because it really doesn't help your conversion of sales, isn't it? So you got to think really about what your online presence is all about, especially for social media. So it could be that you want to get more people to know about your products and services that you have. So that would be to increase your reach. It could be that you want to increase conversion. So you want to get people from social media onto your own website, where they either purchase something on the website or at least get in touch. Now that company that makes the ionizers, they don't sell them online, but there's a button below it that says contact us for more. So they then fill out an interest form, what's called a lead generation form. And then somebody from sales or marketing would get back to them and they will have a chat on how the company can help the factory to solve certain problems. So that is lead generation, but it is still considered a conversion, or it's something that eventually hopefully brings money to you. Now, just to look at those two, awareness and conversions. The message that you write on social media is vastly different for those two. So if you want to reach people who have never heard of you, you wouldn't ask them, no, oh, we have the best stuff, come and buy now, because they have never heard of you. So it's like asking for a hand in marriage for somebody who you have never met. You get a slap in the face at best. So the message has to come out and has to be, no, we provide this, we provide that, we try to help customers with this particular stuff, and so on and so on. Please check us out. That would be for awareness building. If you were to use that same message and try to get somebody to convert on your site, let's say buy it or fill out an interest form and so on, then they would be confused either. So if you try to reach people who are ready to purchase, you can be a bit more firm. Then you can ask them, if you're ready to buy, please come to our website and purchase it now, or get in touch now, or ask us how we can help now, stuff like that. So the messages that go out are different. That's why you have to be clear about what you're trying to achieve. The other thing you got to be clear is, now, who are you trying to reach? Now, there's this misconception that, and I hear this very often in companies, especially from directors, mind you, that one of the KPIs for our social media is we want to have as many fans as possible. We want to get as many likes as possible. Number of fans and number of likes is not a business goal, because it doesn't put money on the table or in the balance sheet. It's what's called vanity. Those are vanity goals. They look good, but they are not really beneficial to a company's bottom line. There's that famous quote, it's normally attributed to Steve Jobs. I'm not sure if it's actually true, but somebody, maybe Steve Jobs, said, if you want to be liked by everybody, go and sell ice cream. So social media is not there for that purpose. So you have to think about who you need to reach. And let's say if you sell ionizers, you have to reach factory engineers, or maybe procurement agents, or procurement executives, or procurement managers in factories. And that's it. You don't need to reach me. So if you come out with a piece of content that is boring or confusing to me, it doesn't matter, because I'm not going to buy your things. It has to be of high value. That content that you put out has to be of high value to people who are your first point of contact when it comes to a purchase decision. So a procurement manager who is looking for ionizers, for example, those are the ones you need to have a good rapport with. So those are the ones who have to understand what you write in terms of content, and those have to be the ones who have to be moved to get in touch with you, to get more info, and eventually to buy. People like me, they don't matter, because we are not going to buy from you. So it's important to, first of all, have your goal clearly identified, and to have your persona clearly identified. Now, as a shameless plug, I do have a social media course, which is it's just a one-day course. If you want to learn more about the in-depth strategies for this, now please reach out either to ICDM or to me. So that's, once you have your goal and your persona, then you can create valuable content for that persona. So to convince that persona that you are the right company to do business with. So you establish authority, you establish credibility, you go through a dating game if you want, before you ask for the hand in marriage, or before you ask for them to open up their wallet. Last but not least, I want to spend a couple of minutes on the gig economy, something that's close to me. I gave a TED talk on this about 1.5 years ago on the future of work. You can look it up at the TED channel. The gig economy is something that all of us are very, very familiar with. Not just by the name, but in our daily private lives. Now, all of us use the gig economy for years and years without actually knowing that fancy term for it. Let me give you an example. So let's say I like Indian food. I actually do like Indian. I like a lot of food. but let's say I like Indian food. So one way of enjoying this would be I could hire an Indian chef who stays in my house, and he cooks me an Indian breakfast, Indian lunch, Indian dinner. And I would enjoy this for a while. But of course, I have to pay the guy or the lady. Once in a while, I'm out, I would have an appetite for, let's say, pizza, something different. Now, the Indian chef that I have, very good at Indian food, not so good at Italian food. So I have options. I can hire an Italian chef as well. And it gets a bit overboard with this. The alternative is I can go to a restaurant and eat Indian food there or Italian food as I please. And that is, I pay for a gig. I don't pay for a chef who lives in my house. I only pay for a particular service at a particular time with a fixed start date and an end date and KPI to it. So that KPI is, I want to go there. I don't want to bother about dishes. I just pay a person who is really good at this stuff, like an Indian chef, for example. I go to a restaurant. That person who is really, really good at this, he or she will prepare me a meal. I pay for that gig, and then I leave. I have no commitments in terms of SOXO, EPF, holiday leave, sick leave, all the other things. So that is something that we have been done for ages. We've been doing for ages. So all of us are familiar with the gig economy. Gig economy is not something new ever since Grab started. It has been around for a long, long time. And there are many other incidences. Now you take the bus, for example, you take the LRT. Those are all gig providers. So you pay for something that you use, and then once you're done using it, you don't have any more commitment to it. Taking a plane. So rather than buying my own plane, I just ride on somebody else's plane and pay for that seat. But for companies, that mindset is very, very difficult to get around. I don't understand why this is the case. So for my own company, small company, in my heydays, I had a number of employees as well. For whom six, in this case, I had 6 employees. Well, doesn't sound like a lot, but it was a lot to manage because EPF had to be paid, SOX had to be paid, and there was always somebody's grandmother gave birth and all this other stuff. Couldn't come to work or came late because there was traffic jam on the road. What a surprise! There's everyday traffic jam. I leave earlier. So all these issues that we had, and it was not very productive. So now what I do is I work purely with gig providers. So if I have something to do, let's say I have a piece of content that needs to be written, I need the video to be edited, I need, some graphic that needs to be designed, I hire somebody. And not just anybody, I hire somebody who's really, really good at this. But I only pay that person for that particular gig. And that is something that will take hold. Now, whether you like it or not, it will eventually get into company cultures as well. Quite a lot of companies now have this work from home stuff. So it's already a bit decentralized, but it is still employees that the companies pay for. At some point, the company will see that, well, this employee actually is not pulling his or her own weight. Now we only need 80% or 60% or 50% of that person. The rest of the time is actually wasted. Why not we fire that person, as hard as it sounds, and we get somebody who is really good on a part-time basis, and we only pay that person for a particular job, outsourcing. It will become more and more prevalent. It is, I'm going to get to the slide. So there are some pros to it. A pro for the worker itself, or let's say the pro for the company, it's a lower cost because you don't have any overheads. You only pay the worker for the gig itself. After that, no more commitment. It's scalable. So there are many freelancers out there. So if for some reason something has to be ramped up, for example, I was on a panel 2 days ago with the CTO of AirAsia, the Chief Technology Officer of AirAsia, we were on the same panel, and the CEO of Touch 'n Go as well. So the CTO of AirAsia said now they are processing a lot of refund requests at the moment where people couldn't get onto their flights. So they had to ramp up. So that means that some of their staff that they have, as well as some gig workers, had to help out to manage the number of calls. So it's easily scalable. If the demand goes down, then you just don't hire so many freelancers anymore. So you're not committed. You don't have a contract with them that you have to pay them on a regular basis. And of course, you have a worldwide pool. So if you need, for example, English language specialists, you get a freelancer from the UK or from the US or from Australia. So from a native English speaking country and so on. From a gig worker perspective, it's also good because generally gig workers make a lot more money providing gigs rather than working for a company. Of course, as a gig worker, you have to be good. I'm a gig worker in a way because I don't work for a particular company, well, except for my company, but I do provide training for other companies. So if you ever have a need for training in digital marketing, I would be one choice out of the overall gig world that there is. So you only would pay me when I come and do my training, not anymore and not any less, not before and not after and so on. So that would be me being a gig provider. And I would make more money that way. So for you, it's going to be cheaper because you don't have to hire me on a full-time basis. And the rest of the time, I got nothing to do. And for me, I make more money because you would only be able to provide me a certain monthly salary before going bankrupt. But for me, charging each client on a per day basis, for example, I can have a higher salary for that. So it's good basically for both sides. There are some drawbacks to it. For companies, it is a bit more difficult to manage. So it's if you work with brand new freelancers who you have never worked with, it needs some time to build trust, to get connected. So a good idea is if you want to get into it, start out small. Get a freelancer, maybe somebody on recommendation, and give that freelancer a small job to do, something that can be completed in a couple of days. See how he or she is doing, what their work ethic is. Generally, freelancers have a very high work ethic because if they don't produce, they don't get paid. So let's see how that goes. If it works well, then move on from there, make it bigger, get more people, build up a freelancer community. There might be some government regulations, but that's again not something out of my control or your control. We just have to follow the flow there. From a gig provider, if you ever think about becoming a gig provider, and mind you, I saw in the sort of quick sidetrack. I saw the attendance list earlier. There was one participant in here who gave the job description as retiree. My hats off to you that you are, despite being retired, that you are still interested in moving this stuff on. Well, kudos to you. But the reason why I say this is recently I spoke to somebody who is part of a retiree community, and they are now providing gigs to companies. So they have all work experience in whatever it might be, let's say accounting, bookkeeping, whatever it might be, doesn't really matter. And they provide now, despite being retired, they provide their services to companies. They can choose. Now, I only want to work an hour a day or 2 hours a day. The rest of the time, I want to play golf or do my garden or whatever else. Up to them. So gig economy is open to anybody who is skilled enough and willing to do this. So there are pros and cons to it. It's a bit more isolation, a bit more stress, maybe, if you take on too many assignments and so on. But again, it is something that will help you to limit the cost that you have, especially if you're a small and medium-sized company and you don't need a certain expertise all the time. Now, if you want to focus on what's important for a certain period of time, think about getting a freelancer on a time basis and then move on. Now, where to get freelancers? There are obviously online brokers, but one of the best sources that I always now try to propagate is look at your local universities. There are many students, undergrad students, postgrad students, who are really, really, really good at certain very specific things. Those make the best freelancers. If they're good at what you currently need. So just contact. Now, if you have an alma mater, contact them. If you have a university that you, for some reason, like, maybe in your neighborhood, whatever it is, contact a particular faculty that you think might be of help. Let's say if it comes to building a website, well, get the faculty of design or web design if they have one, or IT. Just make an inquiry and let them get back to you. If you're a larger company and you need help with certain processes, also think about universities or think about startups. There's no need for companies when it comes to processes, but that's also sidetrack. When it comes to process optimization, to go through massive vendors who will give you massive invoices as well. Now think about startups. Startups are hungry. They are willing to prove their points to you and the rest of the world. So they will do a great job at a fraction of the cost, at a much lower cost. If it's just individuals that you need for certain purposes, do not forget your universities as sources. That's a recommendation I can truly make. All right, that brings me to the end of this. So just a couple things to recap. Think about your customers. When it comes to digital transformation, to serve your customers' needs, that is the main point of you getting into that transformation journey. It is not about pleasing government regulators. It is not about spending money on IT. It is not about the shiny object syndrome. It's purely about providing better service to your customer at preferably a lower price as well. And whatever helps in that journey is good enough for this. Break down internal silos. So it is the mindset that needs to change within the company. Everybody has to work for the same goal. They row in the same boat. You're not just swimming in the same ocean, you're actually rowing in the same boat. Again, for better customer service. People in the company have to understand that if they don't work with others, if they don't increase overall productivity, then the company itself will not be competitive, and that will be disastrous to their job perspectives. That people need to understand. And then last but not least, now look at certain things that you can do, like for example, cloud computing, going online, using social media, and utilizing the gig economy to enhance your productivity at fairly low costs, at least as a start. Now, once you have mastered some of these, or at least got used to it, then you can embark on other parts of digital transformation that will also help you, which are maybe part of your supply chain that comes in, or improve the customer service on the other side, or even improving internal services as well. Okay, that brings me to the end. If you need any help at some point in digital transformation, digital marketing, social branding, and so on, please feel free to get in touch. You can see my website there. You can also reach me through LinkedIn. I showed you that earlier. And you can reach me through ICDM. Before I open up for Q&A, just one last side note I want to see. You probably saw me looking to the side once in a while. I work on 2 screens. If I can give you one important productivity tip, get a second screen, a second monitor for your laptop or desktop, what you have. Normally, laptop obviously comes with one screen. Get a second one. Steal one from your colleagues. Buy a used one. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. And plug it in. Now you work on 2 screens. You will not believe, until you have this tried out, you will not believe how much more productive this is. Now, on one, you do your work. On the other one, you do your research, for example, or you have your spreadsheets. The amount of work you get done is easily double on 2 screens. Yeah, so this is, if nothing else, you believe me, what I have said so far, this one, give it a try. Yeah, it's a very minimum outlay, nothing fancy, as I said, but it is worthwhile to give it a shot. All right, that's it from me. I am going to stop the slides and I give the mic back to Nadia.
Thanks a lot for that, Dr. Frank. Very, very enlightening. I am still kind of taken away that people still do printed catalogs whose names aren't IKEA. Because when you say printed catalogs, the only thing I think of these days is pretty much IKEA. But thank you very, very much for that. We've got a whole bunch of questions actually coming in. We'll move in. But the one thing I wanted to challenge you talking about social media was you mentioned vanity goals, right? Your likes, your interaction, you know, who follows you. But a lot of people, especially for marketing, still want to know that. They want to know how many followers you have, how many likes you have, what kind of interaction it is. So before they even want to work with you. So why wouldn't companies want that when maybe some clients are asking for that?
Okay, so it's now 2 different things that you talk about. So you mentioned influencers. I think that's what you're referring to. So let's say Nadia has, I don't know, 5 million fans on, let's say on Instagram or on Facebook and whatever. Should a company hire Nadia as an influencer to promote their products and services? So number of followers is, to me, it's still kind of misleading. So let's say unless you're selling fast-moving consumer goods or something that is relevant to everybody. So let's say I sell the ionizers that I mentioned earlier. So I'm very, very specific factory equipment. That's Frank's Ionizer Company. Why should I hire Nadia, who has 5 million followers, but who are from so many different types of backgrounds and kinds of walks of life and so on, that out of the 5 million that Nadia has, a very, very small fraction would be interested in what I have. So in that case, the number of followers that Nadia has is not really relevant to me when it comes to choosing influencers. What I was referring to was for a company's Facebook account. So if you, let's say I have Frank's Ionizer Company, for the sake of it, and I have, let's say I have 10,000 followers or 10,000 fans. Out of those 10,000 fans, whenever I post something, 9,900 are completely quiet. Then that is not particularly helpful. So if I use my Facebook post or my Facebook presence for revenue generation, I mean, that's obviously a point. So I want to let people know about my products, and I want people to eventually buy my products. Yeah, that is my purpose of being online. So just having a number of followers is not good enough, because if they are dead followers or non-responsive followers, then I will not fulfill my goal in selling a lot of stuff. So I rather have 1,000 fans who are active and interested in what I have, rather than 100,000 who are not moving or not basically interested in my products and services. That was the point I was trying to make.
I get it. I get it.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry. But thank you very much for the explanation. Just to move on to questions that are not from me, Jasmine Lee from CGRM actually asked this question, and I'm very curious about it too. Talking about how cybersecurity is a constant threat in the digital world, how can an SMA navigate this without having to hire cybersecurity guards to ensure files, data are kept on cloud are secure? I think a lot of people are worried about that.
Good one. So I mentioned earlier, I sit on the advisory board for the International University of Malaya, Wales. And one other person who sits on the board is the owner of a cybersecurity company. So I asked him pretty much that question. We had quite a long chat about this. And so what I'm going to say now is not Frank's knowledge. That's what I got from him. Cloud computing is a lot safer than anything else, number one. So it is because these companies, their reputation lies on it. So if you use Google, if you use Amazon services, whatever, their business relies on it. If there's one incident where their services get hacked, customers all over the world will know it, and they will basically lose their business. So it is in their best interest to do this. This guy, so this counterpart that I have there, he also told me an interesting story. I'm gonna read it. He said, it is not the technology that is the weak point. He said his company, every year, he audits about 100 different companies. So he gets called in, and he is asked to break into their company's security network, basically into their internal network. That's his job. And he says the easiest way of doing this, so all these companies, they have massive firewalls. So they are guarded to their teeth. They have the best software, everything they have. So they're impenetrable from the outside. So he said he doesn't even try. What he does is he will take a pen drive. I have a little USB pen drive. He will put a payload on that pen drive. That payload is normally a PDF. He says 100% of his attacks run on a PDF file. So wow. that pen drive contains a PDF file. That PDF file is named company secrets, payroll, director's message, or something like this, something that is piquing interest. That PDF also contains a virus. Yeah. So then he takes a couple of those and he leaves it on the parking lot of the company in the morning. People drive to work, open their car door, see a pen drive there. Interesting. And then written on the pen drive is something like company secrets. Not as obvious, or payroll, company payroll, something like that. And of course, I always wanted to know how much my manager makes. So they will go inside the building, they will take the stick, put it inside the building, into their computer, fire up that PDF. The moment they load up that PDF, the virus executes. Once the virus executes inside the building, inside the firewall, it will open up the firewall. So this guy who sits with me on that advisory panel, he can now penetrate from the outside because somebody opened the door from the inside. So the point is that cybersecurity, the weakest link is always the human link. It's not the technology.
All right. That means companies themselves have to basically tell their staff, please do not pick up or insert very dodgy looking pen drives that you find in the parking lot. I completely agree with that.
Yep.
Arlena Zura from MACC has this interesting question about what can really transpire employees to understand the importance of digital transformation work other than social media, so they embrace the existence of digital just like how they did for social media. It actually links in with the question I had earlier, where you mentioned that the hardest thing to change is mindset. You are completely correct. It took a month before I figured out that work from home has its advantages because you're so used to working from the office, for example. So how do you actually breach that? You know, how do you convince your employees about the future of digitization?
Okay, one is to get them involved. So there are always discussions now for digital transformation. The process, should it be started top down? Should it be bottom up? Or should it be a hybrid between those two? And although this is for Directors Institute here, it is actually a hybrid. So it has to go both ways. There has to be buy-in and there has to be guidance from the top. And that's where the directors come in. But if there is no buy-in from the boots on the ground, then it's not going to happen. I've worked with one company out of Penang. What they did was, in order to get the boots on the ground interested in this, they looked for what they call captains. So people at the assembly lines, really the boots on the ground. And they looked for people who were influential. They were senior enough, so people looked up to them. So when they're open, they're mini micro-influencers, if you want. So when these people said something, their colleagues would listen. So they would not people who would just gossip and whatever or low-value stuff. When they opened their mouth, people would listen. So they had a certain clout to them. So they were handpicked. And these people also had to fulfill the second criteria. They had to be interested in the digital transformation process. Those were then picked from all different departments. So there was a cross-section over the whole company, from manufacturing to the administrative part and so on. Then they were made a team. They were all called captains, and they were spearheading this as a team together with the chief transformation officer and so on, under guidance, of course. And they had consultants in there for guidance as well. And they would then, they would come up with what's best for a particular process. The worst thing that you can do is sitting in a plush office on a plush chair and try to optimize something, how the assembly line does its work. Because normally directors, they don't know what the best processes are. So you have to, unless you go down and ask the shift supervisors and so on. So they got people in the different areas of the company to give their input as to what can be improved. And then so that was a team that they built. And then they went back to the individual groups and spread that information. So that's how the buy-in came in. So then there was interest. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Great. They listen to us. They want to make our life easier. We encourage that. So then there was buy-in from the whole company, and it was a push that came up like a volcano from the bottom. For some, it couldn't go fast enough. So that really worked well. But the idea was, no, you have to get everybody involved in there. You have to listen to feedback. It's not a top-down thing. You have to listen to feedback from the ground, how to make things better, and then you can get this moving actually very, very fast.
Fantastic. All right, we have time for a couple more. Jennifer Tian has this question about, can you talk a bit about data and analytics? How and where can an SME sort of leverage the data and analytics as opposed to a large corporation, which of course probably has reams full of data and can afford to pay more for data. So how can the SME leverage on what they have and make the best of it?
Okay, data is a very big word because obviously it contains a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff that is within and without your company, inside and outside your company. So one thing that I look at for digital marketing, for example, is data on a website. So when people come to, let's say, your company website, what do they do? Which pages do they look at? which buttons do they click, which videos do they look at, for how long, and so on. Those are data that I collect for website visitors, for example. And then I can improve the website out of that. So that is one way. Another way, probably more applicable to SMEs, is look at your customer data. At the moment, you may market your products and services to every Tom, Dick, and Harry and their cat, because you have not really made that effort to look now, what is your perfect customer profile? But you could look at past customers. So let's say, hypothetical thought experiment. Let's say you own a hotel, and you provide service to business travelers, you provide service to holiday makers, so family holiday makers, and maybe to honeymooners. So you have three different groups of people who you try to cater for. If you were to send out one marketing message to all three of them, you would be very generic, and nobody will be really enticed to come to your hotel. But if you're more specialized, so if you look at the individual personas, so if you look at your existing data and you'll see, okay, our honeymooners, they have done this in the past. Our business travelers, they have done that in the past in our hotel. So they have taken the meals inside, whereas the honeymooners, they went outside to food because they want to save some money. The business travelers, they came back at 5 or at 6 in the afternoon. They always ask the front desk, now, is there anything to do in the evening rather than sitting in the bar? So they looked for entertainment that came up. So maybe there's a jazz concert around that we could lead them to. So you look at what you did with past customers, who your past customers are. And then you look for common traits, something that they all had in common, or many of them had in common. That's how you analyze your data. And then you can create stories, messages, marketing material around those common traits. So everybody has these kind of data. It's just a lot of effort to get to it. Ask your staff, especially your sales staff, what experience they have talking to people, what the customers' needs are, their wants, their beliefs, and whatever. Anything that helps you to build a customer profile. Google web persona or marketing persona, that will get you into the right direction.
All right, one final question before we wrap up for today, sadly. Jiali Lu actually has a very, very good question about how, if you reach out to customers through digitized means, will this eventually reduce the need for personal face-to-face interaction? And how will this impact something like relationship building, which is considered very necessary element in marketing? Essentially, are we getting further away from each other as we go through this digital route? You know, is it going to really replace human interaction?
Yes. Yes. So that's the shortest possible answer to it. Yes, in future, yes. If you look at the older generation like myself, I still do prefer face-to-face. So I do a lot of corporate training. I enjoy standing in front of a crowd, either giving a speech at a conference or do training in a training room and so on, because I can get an immediate feedback. And I think that's something that you're referring to. If you talk to somebody face-to-face, you'll see their emotions, you see that they're frowning, they're smiling and so on. And it helps you to judge how the conversation is going. If you, like me, if you talk to a camera at the moment, you don't get that. You don't get that feedback.
Yeah.
But in the future, it will come down to less personal interaction, or at least face-to-face, and more using electronic means. Now, there are a number of reasons for it. One of them is productivity. Now, I had a potential client that was about half a year ago. They wanted to get me in to help them with a digital transformation. But then, so I'm in Melawati, in KL, in Kuala Lumpur, in Melawati. So I'm on the west side. Sorry, I'm on the east side. And that company was in Shah Alam, which is on the west side. To go from my part to their parts during the day takes me about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, depending on traffic, one way. So it's 4 hours back and forth, plus time for the meeting. So that company wanted me to come over. The CEO said, no, I want to see you first before I commit. And I said, sure, can do, but I don't want to drive over. It's non-productive. We can do a Skype meeting or Zoom. Nobody heard of Zoom at that time, so Skype meeting or WhatsApp meeting or something like that. And he insisted, no, I want you to drive over. I do not want to use any technical means. I want you to come over. And I told him, you're not ready for digital transformation. If you can't even think of using digital means to increase productivity, then you're not ready yet. So I basically didn't take that.
All right.
So for a face-to-face meeting using a camera, first of all, virtual meetings are twice as fast, enough research has been done now, are twice as fast as physical meetings. So they're double productive. And they also don't have any run up to it. So I don't have to spend 2 hours to drive to a client. I just spend 10 minutes face-to-face, and then I can move on to another client. So the 2 hours it takes me to drive to Sharlam and the 2 hours it takes me to drive back. During those times, I can make 2 client calls earlier and 2 client calls after. So my productivity is multiplied. And simply because of that, the occurrence of face-to-face meetings will go down, and the occurrence of using digital means will go up. It's inevitable. The other thing is that the younger generation actually prefers virtual means of meeting compared to face-to-face meeting, which is more for, like myself, a bit of the older generation. So it will die out with people like me eventually.
All right, on that note, it's time to end for this webinar. We've come to the end of our webinar for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Frank, for all the insights and all the views into it. And thank you everybody here for their participation and of course, all their questions. I am so sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but I hope we covered a fair bit of ground. And with that, we'd also like to hear from you. Please use the survey link in the chat box or scan the QR code to provide your feedback on topics of interest. We have a whole bunch of programs. ICDM has a whole bunch of programs out there. Please go and browse things like Aspiring Directors Immersion Program, Affiliate Membership and Board Ready Screening, Director Sourcing and Placement Services. There are a couple more sessions coming up. Watch the space or register your interest at development@icdm.com.my or visit icdm.com.my. Thanks again so much, Dr. Frank. That is it for this session. It has been my pleasure, as always, to be your moderator. Please stay safe out there. Have a good rest of the week, people. Thank you.